Love
guy.
that guy.
Yeah, I do too.
But so I was on, I did a debate on that show, and I was kind of like talking about how it is crazy for all these people who have like the Ukrainian flags, and we care so much about Ukraine and all of this stuff. It's like, do you recognize that we hold all the chips? Like the United States of America holds all of the chips. We could get this war to stop in almost any way we wanted to, if we want to just play our ultimate trump card, which is that we'll leave NATO. I mean, there's no reason for us to be in NATO anyway.
It hurts
totally
America.
It totally makes no sense. It's
I know.
You know, I know you've talked about a bunch. Like, it's like this was started after World War II because Europe had been totally destroyed. America was like the only advanced, you know, country that was like left standing and hadn't had their homeland, you know, wrecked by the thing. And then there's this Soviet Union. And so these guys can't defend themselves. We have to kind of work on this deal that we're not going to let you invade Western Europe, or we'll come to their defense. And now it's like Europe is rich. America's $35 trillion in debt. And oh yeah, the Soviet Union doesn't exist. What's the point of this thing being here? And Vladimir Putin would do almost anything to get that to happen. To get America to leave NATO. It would be nothing but good for us. We just wouldn't be subsidizing other rich countries' defense. He could take it as a huge victory.
Of course.
You know what I mean? You could get almost anything you want. And if you guys care about Ukrainians and Ukrainians dying so much, why not? Why not just make this deal? We could do it right now. I mean, we're not getting Crimea back to Ukraine. That's not going to happen. But who cares? You know what I mean? You could get you could get the end to the war immediately.
So we are literally getting the truth about what's actually going on here. And you know what? As we really think about this, why does the United States not want the war in the Ukraine to end, or even any of these wars? Why does the United States blow things out of proportion? Why does the United States get in on every single war? Well, in this video, we are going to be talking about that. Welcome to the channel, everyone. My name is Nick. For those that are new to the channel, hopefully by the end of this video, you do become a subscriber. If we take a quick look at what is going on right now, specifically around war, we know that the United States is one of the biggest arms exporters in the world at 41.7%. It's not even a question on if they are the largest. And if we think about this, war is very good for the US because it allows stimulation of the economy. It allows the United States to prop these markets up, especially during election year. So when we think about this, yeah, it's kind of like a lifeline for the United States to, just play things out as long as they possibly can until the implosion happens. And also, there's a great article on how the US benefits from war. For an example, the USA produces about 37% of the weapons and arms used for mass destruction across the globe. Again, it's about roughly 41.7% at this current moment. The weapons industry is a prominent business supporting an annual global arms trade worth about roughly $100 billion, significantly contributing to the country's GDP growth rate. War profiteering is a term that emphasizes the profits earned from warfare or trading weapons and other goods to parties at war. The USA has a prominent image of outsourcing war to private defense companies and contractors, primarily US-based companies. The superpowers' tactics are in such a manner that the only country that enjoys the cost of war is the United States, which is why we keep the war going. It's the number one reason why we, always have to get behind wars. And also, by the way, it is a great distraction method. That's right. War is always a great psyop to make sure that people are not looking at the big target. And it always is behind the scenes of something large, meaning it could be leading to a collapse. It could be, elections. It could be some sort of big event that typically is going on that they don't want you looking into. Now, also, at this current moment in time, we know that there is a battle going on right now around the federal government shutdown and the debt limit as well, which if we look at this, we know that the deadline is arriving on January 2nd, the date that the US is set to hit its debt ceiling. Now, obviously, yes, they're probably going to raise this yet again, allow even more printing to happen, but this is definitely something that we need to watch for. especially at a time right now where the Fed rate cuts were supposed to help ease US debt costs, but it's not looking good so far. And again, we have this war going on. And we're also utilizing it as an example because the BRICS and Russia are pushing heavily for digital currencies and CBDCs, which also is allowing the United States to also push for the same exact thing, apparently, because guess what? We can't have our enemy, Russia, pushing for a CBDC and the US just sit back doing nothing. But we're not going to get a CBDC, we know that, because the House did ban the term CBDC. So what we are going to get is most likely a programmable stablecoin that is called a digital dollar. And if we actually look over here, we have this is 0% chance the US avoids default on our debt. No one is even trying to address this. Bankruptcies on the scale historically lead to massive war, famine, and genocide. Now nuclear weapons are on the table. The globalist elites don't have another planet to occupy. They are stuck on Earth, so nuclear war must be avoided. Famine and genocide are less of a concern. To ensure that we stay locked down and can't revolt, the globalists must starve us into submission and control us with a social credit system. Enter digital ID and CBDC, implemented via Agenda 2030, imposed by the UN plus the World Economic Forum. And by the way, if you guys did miss the Agenda 2030, the West and even the BRICS nations are a part of the Agenda 2030, which means that they are actually utilizing this war as an example to push this Agenda 2030. It's a big psyop, okay? Both sides are playing into the same exact agenda. This is one thing that I always love to bring up because a lot of people are still kind of confused on, what's really going on here. That's exactly what's going on. They're still pushing an agenda. It's still a part of the process. This is just a big problem reaction, and they do have the solution. But also, it's the agenda behind the scenes. Now, as we look at this 150-year view of the U.S. national debt, is this another thing that they're trying to, sway our attention away from? Which is almost every single time that we have surged heavily in debt, we have hit a major recession and or war. For an example, 1914 through 1918, World War I, the Great Depression from 1929 to 1933, World War II from 1939 to 1945, and then of course we do have the COVID-19 pandemic, which, a lot of people argue that that was a recession. We also have 2007 to 2009, but here we have our current area of interest on where we are at. If we are going to continue to surge to the upside in terms of national debt, the big question here is, where does this end? Because there's no way that this can continue on to 2030, 2040, 2050. Well, they're going to reset everything. They're going to push for CBDCs. They're going to push for a digital financial system. Now, I also want to play this video clip from Dave Smith again. This is one from Impact Theory. This one's great because it does show us, what they have been doing in time. And by the way, this comparison to 2002 is great because we know what happened after, leading into 2007, 2008. But check this out.
It would be really, really hard for them to recreate, say, 2002. In 2002, for people who are old enough to remember, as I am, there was a steady war beat, a steady war drums beat for the war in Iraq. We didn't invade till 2003, but all of 2002 was spent laying the groundwork so that you would have to be crazy to not know that Saddam Hussein had nuclear weapons and he was in on 9/11 and he's about to pass these nuclear weapons off. He's about to pass the weapons he doesn't have off to the terrorists he's not really friends with, and they're going to nuke Kansas. This is just a matter of time. Literally, the vice president, Dick Cheney, says, it's just a matter of time. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And they got large enough levels of support for the war in Iraq that they were able to pull it off. And back then, the New York Times was selling it, CNN was selling it, Fox News was selling it. I mean, they all powerful sources of information all got behind this war push. And of course, there was a tremendous as there is now, but even a stronger push to demonize anybody who was critical of the war. If you weren't with George W. Bush, you were with the terrorists. They could not pull anything like that off today. And I think that's why they're so upset that we're, that we're not unified. Because when the time comes, if you really want to sell a war, what you're going to need is a massive propaganda campaign, and you're going to need to get at least a large enough percentage of your population behind your war that you feel comfortable enacting the policy. And today we have Joe Rogan and Tucker Carlson and like all of these people who are like way, way bigger than the entire propaganda apparatus itself. And if they were trying to lie us into war again, those guys would be the first ones exposing it on their show. And so that does give me a little sense of hope that I don't know how easy it would be for them to pull off leading us into a next war based off lies. Now, that doesn't mean it's impossible, and they couldn't do it.
And, although, it's not, it's definitely not impossible. I mean, I would argue that we're kind of in it right now. And what the true guise of this overall geopolitical tension and, the war machine, what it is all in place for is propping up, stimulating the economy, and pushing agendas. That's the end goal of all of this. And even as we do look at debt, right, we know that a debt crisis is happening. Whether we like it or not, a debt crisis is going to happen. And if we actually look at, US debt, and we look at every single event in the past when, debt has been surging, it's been going crazy, we typically have these big events. It could be wars, it could be pandemics, it could be, major significant events, recessions. So we're kind of overdue for it. Now, we're already in the process of war, but what is the end goal of all of this? Well, we keep printing money. We keep printing money. We keep giving money away. For an example, here's a list, and this is actually around the, FEMA giving $750 to hurricane victims, which is ridiculous. But if we actually look at this, right, $24.4 billion to the Ukraine this year alone, by the way. $11.3 billion to Israel, almost $2 billion to Ethiopia, $1.6 billion to Jordan, $1.4 billion to Egypt, $1.1 billion to Afghanistan, and the list just goes on. And, I just want to really say, like, this is exactly how they are stimulating, growth. This is how they're printing money. They're sending it around. A lot of it does get, washed back, but this is exactly how they keep things going. They're funding the war machine. They're making sure that, the printer is not stopping. This is only causing debt to go even more and more parabolic. And you might say, like, all right, well, are they actually stimulating the economy? For the most part, the war machine is. But a lot of this is also tied back to the whole plan of self-destruction. They want to self-destruct the traditional system to usher in the new financial system based on CBDCs, digital IDs. And we know this because they're not looking at a sustainable path on debt. They don't care about that. And we also know that the elites have been pushing for, these rapid advancements with AI and blockchain and quantum computing and, utilizing CBDCs and digital IDs. Like, this is what's going on right now. And they're utilizing a lot of these major events like war, and, we're pointing the finger at the enemy and we're saying they're the bad guy and this, that, and they're, causing outrage. And it's both sides, by the way. They're both pulling strings on both sides. It's not just, it's the US or it's Russia. No, it's both sides are pushing this forward. We know this because Russia is also advancing CBDC discussions. We know, China already has their CBDC. India's looking into a CBDC. Brazil's looking into, like, they're all looking into a CBDC. And the big question is, like, what is the US going to do? Well, right now we already have conflict. We're already in war, essentially. So the big question is, all right, well, if we already have a bad guy and they're looking into CBDCs and they're advancing, technology, everyone's asking, like, what is the US going to do? They have to do something. All of a sudden, we're starting to push for a programmable stablecoin, the digital dollar. We're, launching digital IDs and this, that. And there's going to be a lot of people running out to jump on this. but it's also just an agenda. It's all to, push an agenda behind the scenes of, war and big conflicts. And they're also distracting us away from the fact that, yeah, we are facing a very big problem here, which is a debt crisis. And again, they start to, push nonsense out there, the, falsified data. Oh, CPI is doing really good and inflation's dropping, or, this, that, whatever. Again, a lot of this is because of, stimulating the economy, propping the economy up, utilizing printed money to prop things up. And it's the same exact song and dance time and time again. And every single time that we start to see debt going parabolic like we already are, okay, it typically leads to war, recessions, depressions, or significant events. So I question, are we feeding into the World War III narrative now because of this? Or are we having the war narrative a distraction away from a recession or some significant crisis? Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you guys did enjoy this video, definitely leave a like, subscribe to notifications on because more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord down in the description below. And with that being said, guys, it's been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.